quick lesson on my arrangement of Don't Know Why from Norah Jones. So the tune is basically a repeating cycle of what I just played for you. When she takes the solo after the second chorus, it's more or less the same progression. So what this song would be comprised of is basically three sections. You have your intro / outro, which is probably one of the trickier parts. So that part. And then that leads into your verse, which is, so on. And then your third section, which everybody sings along to usually, is the chorus. So we're going to break those sections down one by one, but again, it's basically three sections. That's the bones of the song. We'll go into sort of the more musical parts that you want to pay attention to after we've gotten the bones of the arrangement and the structure, the chord structure. But I always like to start off with saying what our roadmap is, and that's basically, our intro, verse, and chorus. It's a very standard pop style structure, so it won't be too hard to follow in terms of your roadmap. But the tuning is in standard tuning, so E, A, D, G, B, E, and I typically elect to teach with a capo at the second, so that way there's less tension on the neck, on the strings I should say, and you're more likely to practice longer, and also because it can make certain stretches feel more manageable in the beginning. You're always welcome to throw the capo off if you're a capo hater, sorry, but I typically like to learn things with less tension so I can play it for longer, and that's my spiel on that, so I hope that's not a problem. So we're basically, the tune is in the key of A, at least for this guitar arrangement. I think the original key is probably B flat, since it's a pop piano piece, but we're going to be learning it with A major in mind, and what comes around that key and for the guitar. So our first chord is an A major 7. It's much like if you were to do you have an A major bar chord, sort of the Hendrix style of doing that, except you have the major 7th. Very pretty chord. So that's our first chord, and normally I would do the fret it like that, so you have open 7, 6, 5, 4 on the top. But for this intro, what makes it easiest is to just skip the pinky, which is an octave anyway, and we have it. So your first chord is, if you think of it in tabs, it's X, so you don't even worry about the open E, obviously. So X, 0, open A, X, you skip the D string, your third string, and we have 6, 5, 4. So 0, 6, 5, 4, you can think of it like that. And that allows you to use your 4 primary fingers. I don't really use my pinky that much, to be honest. A lot of players do. I do occasionally, but for this I would say probably just don't worry about it. So you have a perfect roll here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be one of the trickier parts, is going to that next voicing of the A. So you have, and then you scoot your index up to the 5. And when you do that, your whole hand, you're going to want to shift up like that, like a full fret. And so now you've got a completely different chord. This is an A7, like a dominant A7. That sort of thing. So you've gone from, it's sort of what makes the song, in my opinion, is going from that A major 7 to an A7. So that pattern is something you're going to want to rehearse quite a bit. It is pretty tricky at first. I actually had to break it down and dissect it myself before filming, because I was like, oh, it's going to be odd to explain, but that's your 8th fret of the B string. So, and then your middle is going to land on the 6th fret of the G string, and your ring finger is on the 7th fret of the D string. So again, I'll do that really slow. Oops. And for this, I really like to assign a finger for each string. That's probably something that you've heard for fingerstyle or classical alike. Is normally I have my thumb assigned to the E and the A string, but in this case, since we're only working with these 4 strings here other than the A note, once I come down here, I'm going to assign my, for that part, I'm going to assign my thumb to the D string, and index to the G string, middle to the B string, and the ring to the E string. And then the next part will be to a D7. And that chord is basically a D, like if you had a D major, except, but really you're not even, I fret it like that out of habit, but we're obviously not hearing that sour note there. So you're only focused on 5th fret with your index, 7th fret with your ring finger, 7th fret of the D string I should say, and then 7th fret of the B string with your pinky. And this is only going to last a second, because it just does a chromatic walk down to a C#7. So we'll do that really quick. We'll do it slow. So that part's pretty manageable. It's mostly getting to that D7. Our next part will have, basically your pinky's going to go. So just let that be your melodic lead, as it is. And at this part, you don't really have to be fretting anything. I kind of let go of the chords as I'm doing the runs, and that's sort of based on what the piano is doing. The piano is actually dropping the notes that don't need to be there anymore if you listen closely to the record. So that's sort of what I've elected to do, is not worry too much about those root notes ringing out. Okay, slow down, Dustin. What did you just do there? Yeah, so we go down to our C#, which is the 4th fret of the A string. And now our next chord is going to be a F# minor 7. Yeah, so the actual chord that's being fretted there looks like this. But we're not using all of those, so you don't really have to worry about barring it. So again, pinky is on the 5th fret of the B string. It's just been walking down this whole time. And now, after we've done our C#, so it's going to be, so you can either do the 2nd fret with your index, and you can either have your ring finger on the 4th fret of the A string or the 4th fret of the D string. That's your octave, that's your 5th, doesn't really matter, honestly, I don't think. I mean, it kind of follows what we were doing this whole time. But I tend to not really worry too much about which interval we're doing here, because as long as we get that root note and the melody, we're golden. So I'll do that one more time. making sure there's as much voicing as possible. Why don't we just say, we'll do that arpeggio, since the next one we go to the B7, which again, you don't have to bar these. It looks like I'm barring them, but save yourself the effort and just think of it as triplet, really slow triplet arpeggios. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that last chord is a E7, but of course we're not really. You can strum those if you want, but I typically just skip them. So again, we'll do this slow. So that last part we'll run through really slow, and I'll break that down. So we've gotten to our F sharp minor, F sharp minor 7. That's our B7. So now we're basically just fretting that. We're just walking this down. I'm sure you've noticed that by now. We just walk it down chromatically from it's just a very long chromatic descent here, but it sounds really jazzy. It sounds pretty cool. So once we get to that E7, what you would probably want to do, which I sometimes skip, is you can do a full 4 roll. Once you get to that E7, you're going to go from, so that 4 roll is after you've hit the root note. So our notes there are, we've got the middle finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, got the index on the 1st fret of the G string, and the pinky is resting on the 3rd fret of the B string. So it's E major 7, E7. But our melody is, of course, on the top. So we're just going to do a full forward roll. So you're going to hit that E, and then we're going to do all 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you don't have to do the hammer on. It's just something I've elected to do. With also the piano does, but for the piano. But you can do. And that's a hammer on to the 2nd fret with your ring finger. And then at this point, I just abandon the chord. I don't bother trying to let it ring out. I just go. Or in some cases, you know, so you can kind of choose what you think is worth the effort. Of course, it is nicer to have that voicing there. I typically do the pinky. It's basically a 5th fret. You're holding the A, goes to open E, and then you pick the open B, and then you start your verse. So and again, you don't have to put too much pressure on that or too much effort into this. You can really just sort of go. You can just have your pinky here on the 5th and go. But it does sound better, and it's a bit more proper to go. That's probably how Norah would play it. I get that nice hanging 7 suspension there on the E major. Oops. Okay, so that's the end of the intro. I hope that made sense. We're going to go into the verse section now. And this is the part where the voice actually comes in. And so when I first did this arrangement, I was playing along to the record quite a bit to try and make the voice stand out as much as possible, which of course is your. So, of course, course, with any arrangement like this where I was originally with a vocalist, you want to sort of let the other strings, what they're doing, sort of be in the background as much as you can, and then put a bit more power and authority into your melody notes. So what I like to do is, coming from that E7, but I like to really put some power into that end of the roll where my ring finger is going, so you can do, but you really want that, well, I'm waiting for, you know, that's sort of a stylistic and a preference thing, but so that first change there that goes into the melody is so it's a bit like what we were doing with the intro, except it's a different voicing of an A major, or of an A7. So we're going, we've got, if the chord is tabbed out, it's basically X, 0, X, we're skipping the D string again, and we've got our 6, 5, 4. Index is just going a hammer off, a pull off from the 4th fret to open, and then immediately you're going to wrap that index around to here, your 5th fret of the D string, and that's going to be our dominant 7th voicing. It gives it a nice jazzy sound. What I like to do is, I'm not sure if whoever's watching has nails or just flesh, but I like to do a down strum there on that. And I typically do that with either my middle or my index. Of course, the slap is optional, totally optional. I know it's not everybody's preference to have percussion in the mix, but it would be hammer off, slap with the thumb, and then the strum. So that next part is following the melody. Wait for the and once we've gotten to that, we're actually switching to the D root note. So we've left, again, it's just like the intro, that chord progression of the descent, it's pretty much the whole song other than the chorus, so you can follow that roadmap that we're just kind of just walking down the whole time. So that note there is very important. You want to really take care of that one. It's the 6th fret on the G string, and then as soon as you hit that, you've got the 5th fret of the A string, which is your D root note. So the melody is, which is that second part, is the 7th fret on the D string with your ring finger. So this chord is actually more of like a D major 7 here. So it's, and then you see we're walking down there with the index, just like we did when we went. So as you might imagine, we're going to follow that same formula there. And this time you don't have to really go down to that until the second part of the verse. We'll get to that in a second. And this is where it gets fun. This is where the actual tag, or the quote of the song is, "Don't know why." So that's like a 6-2-5-1 style jazz tag. So basically your chords there are just like we had. Except it's going. And of course I'll break that down a bit slower here in a second, but again, so we'll do this really slowly from the beginning of verse 1. We're just circling back so that way we can get some repetition under our fingers. And the slide is optional there, but I think it sounds really good. You should really work to do that slide if possible. It adds a bit of sophistication to the melody. And since our middle finger's already there, hovering, that's what I like to slide there. But you can go. So we've done the walking down, and now when we go to that F sharp, the actual quote, getting to that finally, we're going to wrap our thumb here on the F sharp, and then we're going to strum. So basically, instead of doing, we're actually changing the voicing to this, and our melody lives right here. So we're going to keep our thumb, and the chord shape initially with our forward 3 roll is going to be 2, X, you skip the A, and then 2, 2, and then these are, you ignore the tops for now. So that's our index. Alternatively, of course, there is using like many classical teachers would tell you not to do this, and it would be harder with a wider neck anyway, but I like to have the control of the thumb here, so I can really let the pinky be dictated by this muscle a bit more, versus when here you're focusing with grabbing here and fretting that note with the other side of your hand. So I kind of like to free that up and just use my thumb. So the chords that are being used there are F sharp, minor 7, and then it goes to the B7 like we did when it was, instead we're going, so a B7 is typically either like this, or, so this time we're going to go, and so your third chord is that E7, but with the sus here, back to the root, which is our A major. So I'll do that a bit slower again. So I'll do that a bit slower again. And it's totally up to you how much of those chords you want to ring out. That's sort of the more simplified way, but here we'll do the more chord voiced way. So it's just a matter of which ones you're choosing to pick with your index and your middle that are here in the middle. So you can really get some nice voicings in there, but if you want to keep it simple and just do, that's of course an option as well. And so that's the first part of it. Moving on to the second, and so after that, I always like to go, that you have 3 options here, or at least that I've made up. So you can either do taking care that is left ringing, or you can go, so that's just or you can pick down with those hammer-ons there, or I like to do think that's what she does live a lot, Norah, which I think sounds really good on the piano. I kind of just mix it up and improv on whatever feels right in the moment. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Again, this is meant to be sort of a free form arrangement, so you can just leave it too if you want to. You don't have to add the fills. Do something like that, or you could do, and then do a E to A. It's also something she's done live, but I kind of just mix it up, whatever feels right. So what we have on the second part of the verse is essentially the same structure as the first, except we're going to have sort of what we had in the intro. Don't know why. So that's basically follows the whole song, except she has the piano doing the, while she does the. So we're just going to again use those D7 and C sharp 7 arpeggios there, so the 5, 7, 7 and 4, 6, 6. Instead of, or depending on what part of the melody, what part of the song it is. What she'll do at the end of the verse, before going into the chorus, both times, is what she'll do is a tag. And a tag is basically a musical term for a repetition of the last phrase. So wouldn't be the entire. So it would be the entire. I didn't go. So basically, you have just an echo, sort of, or a one last go at the melody. And she does that on both verses. And since I'm only going to do one, I guess, lesson section of the verse section, what she does on the second one is a slight variation. Instead of the second verse she'll do, or the second pre-chorus, tag, whatever you'd want to call it. So the best way to explain that is she's doing the same exact chords, except it's, so that's on the E. And this time you do have to bar. So your F sharp minor 7 again. So now you've got your B7, E, and that's more of an E augmented there. So your fingering for that is you're adding an F into the voicing. It builds a little tension, a little bit of interest to the chord voicings. She'll go into the chorus. So again, just to reiterate that, the first pre-chorus / tag is don't know why I didn't go. Don't know why I didn't go. But then the second time she does it, don't know why I didn't go. Second time she does it, but then the second time she does it, so that's sort of your variations there. And finally, moving on to the chorus, it's the part that everybody likes to sing. I'll do a couple of different turnarounds to get into that, but essentially your options, or the options that I've come up with, I change it every time when I play it live. So you just have a chromatic walk up to the root note, or you can do so that lands right on the melody, or you can go. So that's two options. And then the simplest one, if you want to just keep the groove really tight and less is more approach. So just like a little. Just some. Yeah, so those are your three options, or you can come up with something yourself, which is always a better thing to do. When I had made this arrangement, I learned a bunch of arrangements from different people, and I tweaked what I did and didn't like from their arrangements, and then added my own stuff, like a lot of the fills and turnarounds. So now getting into the pre-chorus, the chorus. So now getting into the chorus. So this part is going to be barred. It starts on your F sharp minor 7. Second chord is a B7 augmented. I'm not sure the exact voicing or the interval name of that, but the tab of the chord is essentially 7x 789 789. Nice little sort of staircase chord there. And so our melody here. So really important to keep that in mind going forward with these chords. What I like to do is or. So I'm just focusing on that melody, and then after about a microsecond, I'll fret the chord, apply the pressure, and then do the arpeggio. So. So that middle chord there is, it's tabbed 6, 7, 6, 7. Sort of a jazzy in between diminished chord. And there's so many things you can do to vary that up. You can do. I kind of change it depending on what I'm feeling when I play it live. I kind of just change it depending on how I'm feeling when I play it live, so I can be. Just like a singer would sing it differently every time. But it's just important to remember so you can either abandon that chord and then go straight to your E major, or you can really let those notes interlap. Totally up to the player, really. But it lands on this nice E major chord. And so the way that that's recorded with the piano is with those same root notes. And so there's a couple ways you can do it. You can either do it with the thumb, which I prefer. So up to the second, so 0, 2, 4, 2, which is the B on the A string, second fret. But I've always really been a big fan of that nice arpeggio. It's a 5 roll, so you can use your pinky, or you can just do a 4 roll and then use your ring again like this. But I always like to go. And then that leads into the second half. So that is played basically with the same first few chords. So instead of the words being heart is drenching wine, it's you'll be on. And that only happens on the first chorus, I will say, because on the second chorus, which we might as well talk about here, on this section, it's just like how there's a variance. The first verse has that sort of repetitive tag, and then the second tag on the second verse goes. You know, the song is, again, it's a pop structure. It's just intro, verse, chorus, solo, verse, outro. You know, it's a very simple thing, so Norah sort of just added some embellishments to the different sections. So again, your first chorus is so that's what happens instead of going. The second time you come to that E, it'll be, so you're walking down, take your ring off of the second fret, go to an open D, which is your 7, and then you're going to go to a C sharp, which is the 4th fret of the A string with your pinky, 4th fret, 2nd fret, which is your B. And then we start over. So if you made it this far, you've made the bones of the song. You've gotten pretty much the structure down. Now it's just going to be a matter of repetition. Repetition is always just the greatest teacher, in my opinion. Practice something until you can multitask with it. You can watch captions on a laptop or a TV. Read captions on a laptop or a TV, or just where muscle memory takes over and you don't have to think so much about what you're playing, just again the repetition. So I almost forgot, the second chorus, instead of it going the first chorus goes, but then the second one goes, and that's sort of the climax melodically of the song, I think. So again, keep in mind for your second chorus, once you start piecing this song together how you want it from beginning to end, if you were to play it live or for a recording, the first one goes, but then the second chorus will go like this. And so the way to fret that is actually pretty simple. It's if you're familiar with bar chords, so you have the typical, it's basically an E major shape. move it up here. But in this case, it's a seventh. So we're taking our pinky off, and so basically if that chord was tabbed out, we've got 7, 9, 7, 8, 7, 7. And then for the melody, so it's going, and then our melody is going to be with our pinky. And I like to do sort of this double stop. Instead of doing, don't worry about doing that chord this time. It's just going to be. So there's a couple ways you can approach that B7. You can either strum it, or you can go, so like a little 3 roll to get that roll there, and then do the arpeggio with your thumb. So I'll do those options again. After that second chorus, she'll do go into the solo section. But what I do when I play this live is I just do the intro for the outro, and then I'll jam or improvise over that. With the tag. Or sort of play off of that A major 7 sus. It's a really beautiful chord. If you can reach it, this is a good one too. 0, 2, 6, 0, 4. Or there's also 0, 7, 6, 0, 0. Or 0, 7, 6, 0, 4. All good chords to end with. But that's about it. I think referencing these with using the YouTube playback speed, cutting it in half for some of those sections and playing along with it would be really helpful. I'm always a very big advocate of playing super slow when you're learning something, like slow to where it's just really boring, but when you slow things down you can bring it up to speed and then it's better. So you could even practice this at 3/4 speed. That might help. Playing along, I should say, making sure that your tempo is good. I didn't really stress the percussion part of this because doing the thumb that itself is a skill that's required, or that's acquired from sort of, it's something that you have to practice separately from this song, I think, probably, if you really wanted to get the hang of it. That's why I think it's totally fine to just abandon the thumb. It sounds totally fine without it. It's just something I do habitually, so that's something you can probably learn from different YouTube tutorials on the 1 and 3 slap, they call it. Falls on beats 1 and 3 if it's a song that's in 4/4 timing, which this one is. So if there's anything else, any other questions, feel free to give me an email or shoot me a message. That about wraps it up. So again, it's just intro, verse, chorus, verse 2, chorus 2, and then after that chorus you can either do the outro, which would be the same as the intro, or you can jam as a solo and then tag it for your outro, and that's something I do when I play it live. But that's about it. So I hope you enjoy learning it, and thanks for watching. Take care.